Hello, and welcome to the Matriarchy on this rather frigid winter day. We are so excited to be here, and we're going to talk about an interesting topic. We're going to talk about homelessness and how we take care of our most vulnerable people. And I'm going to just pass it over to Lisa to introduce a dear friend of hers.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you, Kath, and welcome everybody. And I would like to give a big welcome to Kimber Bishop-Yanke. Kimber is a passionate community leader and founder of Kids Empowered and its nonprofit arm, Kids Empowered on the Move. Organizations dedicated to empowering children with social and emotional skills and supporting families facing poverty and homelessness through food, clothing, shelter, and educational programs across Metro Detroit. She also serves as the chair of the Oakland County Task Force on Poverty and Homelessness, which is kind of where I first met her, coordinating volunteers and resources to meet urgent needs and help families transition to stability. In recognition of her impactful service, particularly her work advancing youth development and community support, Kimber received the Youth Services Impact Award from Governor Gretchen Whitmer through the Michigan Governor's Services Awards. So, and I know that's not the only award she had, but that's the one we thought to highlight today because of its
Still pretty
relevancy.
impressive.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So, welcome, Kimber. I'm so glad that you're joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I'm gonna kind of dive right in. So one of the things that always interests me is when I talk to women, especially women who have a really strong voice and advocacy and in the world. How did you find your voice? Did you always have that strong voice? And sort of like a couple of that question with who are the voices that mentored you to find your voice?
I clearly know when I found my voice. It was an event. I don't know what the word is, but I clearly knew when I found my voice. And I'll be honest, I don't feel like I had mentoring. I felt like I was a very sheltered. I grew up in a family with two sisters. I felt like my father and mother very protective. My father was a workaholic and provided everything for us. And really, I mean, he actually told me when I went to graduate school that he wanted me to go to graduate school so I could meet somebody that could provide me with the lifestyle that I had grown up with. Um,
Hmm.
so the day I found my voice was I won't go into all the details, but my
Yeah.
freshman year of college, one of my very first semester, I was sexually harassed by my English professor, and he would say inappropriate things in front of the entire class. Some stuff I couldn't even understand, but I only knew from the guys laughing that it was inappropriate, and I would just turn red. And the first time I went up to him, I got a D on my first paper, and I went up to him and asked him if I could talk to him, make an appointment in his office. And he said, as long as there's no hanky panky. And I was like, so I remember thinking, what did I say? Like, where did that come from? And I was so embarrassed. And for what I found out later, is that he would pick one girl in every class to do that to. And the
Ah.
girl, I ended up rooming with this very sophisticated, savvy girl who had traveled a lot, and she thought it was funny. My best friend that I became good friends with in college also thought it was funny. I would go home and cry every time I had the class. Every time I saw him, I would run, like literally my heart would beat in panic and I would run. And I had a boyfriend who tried to get me to go report him, but I hadn't, the word
Mm.
sexual harassment was not out yet. And I did
Sure.
not know what it looked like. I'd never been talked to like that. I'd never been exposed to anything like that. So all I did was go home and cry, or go to my dorm room and cry about it. Did nothing.
Mhm.
Then I get to graduate school. We're talking probably 6 years later, 7 years later. And now I should have had a red flag, but I was so naive. I had an internship in Washington, D.C., where I got to work for the undersecretary's office. And we made the connection to this professor that he was going to be coming. And somehow this professor actually already knew who I was. And what I found out later is I used to teach aerobics on my campus. And I found out later he would be watching through the window of the class. But at the time, did not know
Ew.
that. Yes.
So gross.
So, yes. So the very first part of my job was to go pick up the speakers that were coming in from the airport. And we had a pub on campus. I brought the first speaker to the pub where he asked me to, and women's wrestling or something was on the big screen. And my boyfriend's standing right there, and he starts talking about women in this very vulgar way. And my boyfriend said immediately, Kimber, that man's a pig. You have to quit. And of course, I had the mentality that all of us are grown up with is you don't quit. And so
Right.
for those 5 weeks, again, I probably cried every single day the way he spoke to
Oh my
me
gosh.
and treated me and did nothing again. And then what happened is I got my first like real job for a toy company. And it was when the Anita Hill thing had happened. And all of a sudden, everybody was talking about sexual harassment. And I went on my first trip to Atlanta to the sporting goods show, and we went with the new vice president. And what happened is I felt like I had found my voice. So he was talking inappropriately to me and my coworker, who is my age, and I like shut it down. I was like, not funny, not going there. Well, I saw my coworker, she giggled and laughed and like didn't know how to handle it. And so it got progressively, he kept going and going. So by the end of the trip, I was called into human resources because other people had reported this behavior. And I was asked, did something happen that you need to share? And they were worried. And I was like, nope, I handled it. I'm good. And then they asked me to speak to all these senior vice president men about what it was like to be sexually harassed. And they showed this video. We had to go through this training, and they showed this video of a woman putting lipstick on in an office, and her coworker were walking in. And then they said, like, what does that look like? How would that happen? And I thought, what a dumb example. Like, I was so
Yeah.
mad. But in the toy business and sporting goods business, it was bad. The sexual harassment was
Yeah.
bad. So I had a
Yeah.
policy. I wouldn't talk to any men unless I worked with them directly. And then I had one of the vice presidents who was, this big fat man. He had a Coke, and he made the comment about the, Anita Hill thing. I'm not going to say the words he said to me. And I remember that was the day I found my voice. I looked at him in the eye and I said, you ever say something like that to me again, and we will be meeting in human resources. You're never going to talk to me like that again. And that was the day I found my voice.
Wow.
Yay!
Yeah. Yeah. That's powerful. And I think, the fact that you had to go through all that, and I'm sure it didn't end there, but I mean, you were finding ways to handle it yourself and not going to human resources, because I've had some similar, not exactly experiences, but what you find when you go to human resources, or at least back then, is they don't really help you, right? They're just there to protect the guy, right? So I love that you found your voice and you found ways to mitigate these situations and teach people how to treat you.
And that's
So,
honestly how Girls Empowered, which turned into Kids Empowered, started.
mhm.
Because I
Oh.
thought to myself, if somebody had told me what to do ahead of time, I would at least
Mhm.
had some ideas of
Mhm.
how to handle this. And so
Yeah.
that's the whole thing behind like teaching assertiveness and what can you say when someone says something inappropriate or mean to you? How does your voice sound? What does your body language
Mhm.
look like? How do you stand up to that?
Yeah. Yeah, so let's like back up a second so we can let the audience know a little bit about what you're talking about. So, Kids Empowered is your business, right? And so do you want to describe a little bit about what that's about?
Yeah, so I'll be honest, because of the homelessness stuff, it's become a much smaller part of my life. But for
Yeah.
25 years, I have created empowerment programs for kids, self esteem, social skills, mainly assertiveness. Bullying has been my specialty. How do you shut down
Great.
situations? How do you stand up to them? And
Mm,
I feel like, when I started, everybody told kids walk away. And all
yeah.
that sends the message is you can treat me like that. And so I really like dove into, because there was nothing out there. I had to go into special, books for autism to find out how do you teach social skills. And now it's like more,
Mhm. Hmm.
way more common. And what worries me is like everybody stopped talking about bullying when the pandemic happened. And I just feel
Mm,
like we have not really, it's happening out there and we're not really
yeah.
focused on it anymore because there seems
Yeah.
to be so many other crises out there. But I still offer summer camps, but I primarily do one-on-one coaching with kids. So I really get
Mm,
into like what they need. Like, do we need to work on self esteem? Do we need to work on your friendship skills? Do we need to work on
mhm,
how you present, how you stand up to that friend you have or that unfriendly classmate you have in class? So I
mm,
love the one on one stuff.
yeah. That's
And these curriculums, do you offer them to like, how does that work? To Girl Scouts or after school
Yeah, so
programs
I don't
or
do a lot of workshops anymore, although I am doing a Girl Scout workshop tomorrow morning. Um, but that's why I mentioned to you that it's been on my list to do podcasts because I have developed my own curriculum because there was nothing out there. And so I
okay.
want to actually, I do have a couple curriculums available on our website. Where I send people, packets of information with activities to do for their kids, but I want to not lose the 25 years of experience I have because I truly believe every
Oh,
child should have these skills and we should teach them in
absolutely.
school, and make them more available to parents.
And
yeah.
just one other question. You said you changed the name from Girls Empowered to Kids Empowered? Tell us about that.
Yeah. So, what would happen is when I used to go into schools a lot, they would ask for they would get like parents would give them a hard time about not having something for boys. And so we started doing some boy empowered programs. And it was funny because I have two boys, and I thought somebody would kind of take my idea and do it for boys. So when I got pregnant with my second son, I'm like, if nobody's done this, we're just going to start offering it because I want my boys to have
Mm,
this too.
And do you teach similar skills to boys and girls?
Oh, yeah,
mm,
boys need this too. And
Yeah.
it's a little bit, different how we teach. We have some classes that are boys and girls, but like boys need movement, they need action, they need quicker,
Okay.
pieces of information. So we modify the lessons. Girls like doing crafts. So I like to teach with activities and give them something to take home so then they have something to remember what we talked about. Because these are big concepts. I mean, we can look around at all these adults who are not handling life very well. And it's because
yeah.
of these
Yeah.
skills. They don't have the skills.
That's a good point. That's a really good
Yeah.
point, Kimber. Pivoting to Kids Empowered on the Move. So I know this story, but our audience and Kath do not.
I don't
So
know it, so
can you share with
dish.
us how you got into the work that you're doing with Kids Empowered on the Move, and also kind of I'm going to tag on to that. How do you stay committed to it?
7 years. It's crazy.
7 years.
What happened is for the last 10, 12 years, had organized volunteers for my church for a warming center that happens in Royal Oak every winter. for 2 weeks at a time. And somebody that I play soccer with knew I did that. And I'm not a very good soccer player. I do it for exercise and fun.
I
But
doubt that's true.
I can guarantee you it's true. Because you know what? They didn't have soccer in Kentucky for girls. They didn't have
Oh,
soccer. And
oh,
yeah, and
Oh,
guess what?
oh.
I signed up to be a ball girl and went on one game on the bus and then said, I am not getting these balls for boys. Like it was like the most humiliating experience. Um, but yeah, it's really fun. So
Okay.
she called me up and said, I have this former student who's sleeping in a car, 22 years old. Can you help her? And I was so naive about the homelessness system that I was like, sure. So for 3 months, it was crazy to keep this girl warm in a safe place. And she ended up in different shelters. She had all kinds of authority issues, stomach issues. There's lots of rules for people that really make it difficult for them to have a, easy time at these shelters. And so I had 3 different friends, which insane, would never do that again. But they opened their homes up to her. And the local
wow.
shelter, their process was you had to call every day at 10 a.m. to try to get a spot. And if you didn't call, you got dropped to the bottom of the list. And so when I would ask her, did you make that phone call? She was like, I overslept. My phone is dead. I didn't have Wi Fi. It was, a multitude of barriers. So I started driving to wherever she was at 10 o'clock to make this phone call. And after like 7 days of the same phone call, they never said, "Can we get you food? Are you safe?" It was just, "What's your name?" You know, and that was it. And so I finally asked, how many beds do you even have? And like, what is the line? Is there 50 people in line? Are there 1,000 people in line? Like, I'm thinking to
Mm,
myself, is this make sense? And I'm spending all this time trying to make this phone call. And the
right.
person on the phone said, I can't tell you that. So that was the wrong person to say that to. So I said, can I speak to your manager? And she said, we're short staffed. We don't know if we have a bed." And then I was like out of my mind. I was like, oh my God, you're making all these people in crisis call you and you don't even know if you had a bed. So I called Christine Gregg, who is a minority leader for the Dems in the House of Representatives state level. And I'm like, Chris, we have a problem in Oakland County. Like, I cannot find how to get this girl help. And she agreed that nobody had talked about it for years. And that she said, bring
Mm,
me a group of nonprofits. I'll bring you a group of elected leaders. And we had the meeting at Genesis Church where the warming center was. And then Representative Carter stood up and said, I'd like to start a local task force and then a caucus on poverty and homelessness in the House and Senate. And then she asked me if I would help. And of course, I'm not going to complain if I'm not going to help. And I was very excited because I thought I was going to be working for her. And then 2 weeks later, I saw on Facebook a post that I was the chair of the Oakland County Task Force on Poverty and Homelessness. And I was like, oh my
You
God.
are duly knighted.
I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, you got to be kidding me. So I started holding monthly meetings and it's like, what can we do? How can we help with this? I mean, to think of how much I've learned these last 7 years, how naive again I was. One of the nonprofits shared that she worked in Pontiac High School and she shared that she was giving kids cans of ravioli to take home for dinner and washing their clothes at home herself. And I was like,
mm,
how can that be? We are Oakland County. Like, there are food banks. We have to have
Yeah,
resources.
yeah.
And she's like, Kimber, she goes, food banks are only open maybe 1 to 3 or 9 to 11. People are actually working that need food, and many of them don't have the
mm,
cars to get there. And so I
mm,
was like, because I had also organized for 8 years, I'd organized for my church Thanksgiving baskets where food was on the table, people packed a basket, and then they delivered it. And the question I had to myself was, could Kimber, as an individual, no church behind her, no nonprofit behind her, could I rally people in the community to start doing these food deliveries of fresh fruits and veggies to people who could not get to food banks? So we partnered with Micah 6, which is a fabulous organization in Pontiac. We were just going to test it out. 25 families, and it was scheduled March. I always get these days mixed up. March 21st of 2020. And then
Yeah.
2 weeks before that is when everybody's life shut down because of the pandemic, including my business, because I worked with kids. All the schools shut down. So I thought to
Yeah.
myself, okay, I'm just going to throw myself into this food delivery, and life in 3 months will go back to normal. And so the first delivery was to 250 families. We did it at a Representative Carter's office in the parking lot. We had 50 volunteers. I had people going to Kroger's and Myers. All the stores were limiting the food so they could only buy two, eggs and one milk. And it was crazy, but it was beautiful. People came together and we did this delivery. And they all said, Kimber, we want to do this again. So I had heard that Jennifer Lucarelli, a professor at Oakland University, was pulling all the food banks together to try to have an organized way, make sure everybody was getting help that needed it. So I called her up and said, could we deliver every Saturday to these 250 families and pack the food? And she let us. And what happened is the first volunteer calls me up and says, Kimber, there's a mom who has a baby sleeping in a dresser drawer. She wanted to know, could we get her a crib? So I was like, yeah, that's not a big deal. And then all of a sudden, we have this team of amazing people who are delivering furniture, and all the nonprofits were shut down. So these little grassroots, efforts were it. And so we started delivering furniture. And then a few days before Christmas, I got a call from Pontiac High School that there was a mom and 6 kids that had been kicked out of the house because they had COVID. The grandmother was scared to death of getting COVID, kicked them out of the house. And they were asking me to put them in a hotel. And I was scared to death because I was like, how can I be responsible for this family? I reached out to the nonprofits, couldn't get any answers, support. I said, I'll raise the money, give it to you all. You guys know what you're doing. I don't. No response. And so I put our first family in the hotel. And we had a guy go get Christmas gifts. I have the picture of the luggage cart with the gifts outside the room because he couldn't talk to them. And it was, again, beautiful. And last year, I spent $350,000 sheltering homeless families because we had no place to go in Oakland County. But I just want to say, of this 7-year journey, in the last couple months, so much progress has been made. So thanks to Senator Bear, Rosemary Bear has been an advocate. She's listened to me. She's been fighting this cause, and OakGov has really stepped up. So they've hired 20 caseworkers. And so about 6 weeks ago, they started taking
Wow.
all the phone calls, and they're doing case management now. And then they hired this guy named Steve Norris to sort of run. So now we have an emergency shelter at a church in Pontiac where we have 50 moms and kids. So I had all these moms and kids in hotels 2 months ago. I was able to move a bunch of them to this shelter, and many of them have now even gotten housing now. So now we
Wow.
have
That's great.
because before
Okay.
I would get people in the hotel, but there was nowhere for them to go. And, people
Right.
criticize me like crazy for doing this. And I kept saying, where do people go? There's nowhere people go. And I went
Yeah.
into debt $150,000 last year. And every time I got the phone call, and this is what was crazy, I was getting the phone calls from the police, CPS, the hospitals. And it was
Yeah.
like they were calling me. Like Kimber was answering the phone for all of Oakland County. Like, how insane is that? And I did it for 2 winters and it was miserable. But every time they called
Well, and
me,
that's why I always tell people you're an angel. Like you are
yeah,
an angel. Like you're like Kimber the like the angel running around taking every call, helping every possible person. Like and I think, I can't imagine the toll. Well, I kind of know a little bit the toll it takes on you, but like it's so many you have helped so many people and when you mention OCA, that's Oakland County,
yes.
Michigan is now stepped up. And I believe for a large reason because of your advocacy, right? And these 7 years, and I'm so happy finally that that we're seeing progress here. And I just want to thank you for that.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
I it's
It's
it's amazing work. Like you're amazing. So I'm
Well,
sorry.
thank you.
I just want to say
yeah,
that.
no. I don't know Kimber well, and so parts of the story are new for me. And I have to say my thought is, what the hell? Like
Yeah,
like you shouldn't have like someone a private citizen going into debt
yeah,
in one of the wealthiest counties in not only Michigan but in the country. Like
yeah.
it's astounding to me that there's not only not enough beds, but there's no infrastructure for this. So I guess what I'm curious about is what's the scope of the problem? Like I think we don't think about this being a problem in Oakland County, but clearly it is. But what like would the average person be really shocked to know?
So I just want to clarify something. So, like, when I first started, I had another nonprofit that was like taking all the donations. I would submit the receipts, and I was basically volunteering for like the first year. And then it was like, oh my God, I'm in this. I'm doing this like full time. And the nonprofit called me up and they said, Kimber, this has gotten out of hand, too big. We never, we were just going to help out a couple months. So then I realized at that point, I had my own nonprofit that I had started when I started my business. But my little nonprofit was like $15,000 and under. And so now we are $800,000, which
Wow.
again, insane to me because it's mainly private donations. And so, I did this very grassroots, mainly through social media, mainly just telling people what was happening. And people have responded, which is the most beautiful thing. And if I didn't have all the volunteers like Lisa Kiefer, if I didn't have all these people stepping up, to do deliveries, to sponsor people for Christmas, like I could never have done this. So what happened is when I put the first family in the hotel, I started learning that there are hundreds of families living in hotels. And it's a trap.
Mhm.
Like they cannot get out. And they are not considered, the majority of them are not considered homeless. So, according to
See.
the HUD, you have to be in a car, on the streets, or a shelter or a hotel paid for by a nonprofit. And in Oakland
Mhm.
County, the group that kind of runs this makes you be a member of their group. So like you can't, like, not any nonprofit can pay for somebody and have that person be homeless. You have to belong to this group, which I have an issue with big time. I'll be honest, we don't really know the scope because
Mm.
nobody was tracking all those families. So
Yeah.
now this is one of the
Interesting.
things Oak Gov, it's called Oakland Connect. Now they want every homeless person to call them so that they can get registered, and then we can start tracking, how many people we have. But, if I were to guess, just based on how many families, like at the hotel we keep most of the families are, there's 108 rooms filled right now. And I would guess that probably 90, 85 of them are homeless. And what's happening
Mm.
is these people are spending $450 a week to stay in the hotel, so they can never make enough to get out. And so now what's happening again, at this time last year, I had 50 families in the hotel. And every time the police would call, my thought process was, I don't have the funding, and the hotel let me have an account. So that was part of how I was able to have so much debt. What I wanted to clarify is when I activated my nonprofit, it was through my nonprofit, although ultimately I am responsible for that debt. So I personally wasn't taking it, but I was personally
Mm.
responsible for it.
Right.
And
Mm.
I would say to myself, if that child freezes to death tonight, I will never ever live with myself. And so I am just going to figure out the money later. And I did not have a plan. And what happened is this woman named Paula, who served with me on the warming center for all these years, she saw what I was doing. And her church was closing down. And they gave us a $250,000 donation. So I was
Wow.
able to
Wow.
wipe off all the debt. I can't even tell you,
Nice.
like, the stress of carrying that. And then the
Yeah.
other thing that happened is because we had crossed this financial threshold is I had to go under a financial review, which was like $20,000. And we don't have that kind of money. And so because of this church, I was able to take care of that. So it just
That's
like
good.
totally dug me out of this hole that I found myself in. And then now the good news is OakGov has taken on the burden of putting people in hotels. I still have like 10
That's good.
families myself because there's nowhere for families that have a dad to go. So I've got those families. I'm actually trying to raise money for them because sort of now what I'm doing is now sending me clients and they're saying, "Hey, Kimber, we have a client that needs her DTE bill. We have a client that needs her deposit paid." So I am now trying to come up behind them and support them and not have all the calls coming to me, which
Mm.
is better because they have this system. I don't have that system.
Sure.
I'm a one
Right.
person show.
Right. 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 So you just mentioned something that I kind of wanted to dig in a little bit on. You mentioned that there's nowhere for families with fathers to go. And so, can you talk a little bit about some of these surprising things about our system that essentially are barriers for people that maybe the average person, the people in our audience wouldn't know about?
Yeah. So, getting your birth certificate, getting your social security card, not easy. We have so many homeless families that lose their car. I can't tell you how many people lose their car. So they're taking Ubers. So we have all these people
Mm.
that are, and these people are working. Okay.
Yeah.
People assume that homeless people are not working. No, they are working. A lot of them are. Um, and so all the myths about that, they want to be this way, they don't want to work. There is, of course, some people like that, but most of the people are working and they have a really hard time keeping a job because they don't have childcare. So, for example, in order to get help with childcare, you actually have to have the job first. So, like, okay,
Mhm.
how does a single mom have anyone? She has no one to take care of her children. Go find a job.
Yeah.
Doesn't work. So why can't Mishta say, okay, mom, we're going to give you childcare for 3 months. You have 3 months to find a job. And then you have to show us that you found your job or show us proof that you're looking for a job. Okay. Transportation. I know that the Oakland County Commissioners have really been trying to get public transportation throughout our county and they've made progress, but we need more progress. It
Absolutely.
pains me when I'm driving by in this 1-degree weather, seeing people out there waiting for buses. I can't imagine doing it. So we make it super hard. Some people are traveling an hour just to get to work. I have one mom that we have in the hotel that we've been paying for quite a bit because she's in and out of the hospital with heart surgery. And
Mm.
all her money goes to Ubers to get to work. She like barely has anything left after working 40 hours because it's all going to Ubers. So a lot of families also, they don't have the deposit. They don't have the
Mm.
application fee. Um, these places are making people pay $50, $75, $100 per person to apply for a house. And I have to believe that there are something scamming going on because we've seen houses that have been available for a year. And person after person applies for them. So, like, I just feel like there's a little bit, not a lot, but there's some people out there that are just taking in the application fee. A lot
Mm.
of our families get scammed. So they will find a house on Facebook. They'll send the person money without even seeing the house. They're so desperate to get housing, or they'll send the person money to get the car and there's no car. We personally have gone through some of these experiences. So, for example, there was a family that we helped the grandmother, and the house next door became available. So there were two sisters that wanted to try to get into this house. So they went over. The worker said, "Oh, whoever gives us $3,000 first can have the
Oh.
house." So one of them ran and gets her life savings out of the bank, gives this worker $3,000, gets the key to the house. And then a couple weeks later, she calls me up and says, "Kimber, I think I just got scammed. I moved into this house, the person was communicating with me. And then all of a sudden, when I was like, well, when are you going to bring the fridge over? When are you going to do this? They just went dark. And it turned out that the workers took the money and disappeared. And so then and
Wow.
again, nobody else is going to do this. I started calling. So, I called a realtor, saw who owned the house. Turned out it was like a property manager. And I called probably 20 phone calls until, like, I called calling the bank. I was calling because they kept sending me to all these people. And I finally had a guy say, "You know what? I'm going to find the right person for you to talk to." Got a hold of the person, a property management company. They had no idea that the company they hired to do these repairs had,
Had done that.
basically their
Yeah.
employees had scammed this person. And then that mom eventually got her $3,000 back.
Oh,
But that was a lot
yeah.
of work. And
Yeah.
then she was still homeless for like months after that.
My guess is that there's a pretty fine line between being housed and being homeless, that it's fairly easy to slip into it. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. Now that I've been doing this for 6 years, I have learned so much. And what I'm hoping is that once we get the infrastructure really developed in Oakland County, which is, we're making huge progress, then I can start working on some prevention programs. What we find is a lot of these moms don't have any support system. And so, like, for instance, I am going to try to do this. We found an apartment complex in Pontiac that was only requiring, this is another barrier. Landlords require 3 times the rent. So if the rent is $1,200, they have to make $3,600. Most of them do not.
Mm.
So I found this one apartment building recently that is only taking 2 times the rent. And we got like 7 families in there, mainly single moms. So I am going to try to find some volunteers to meet with these moms and to say, how can we support each other? Maybe I could babysit your kids while you're working, and maybe I could cook dinner. I have a car. Like, let's throw in some gas money and I'll take you guys all to the grocery store. So I am
Mm,
gonna, I have that on my list to do. But
mm,
these families do not have support. They are not
good.
connected. And there's all these single men that are homeless. And it's
Mm.
really heartbreaking because I have several of them that call me on a regular basis because they have nobody else. So I just feel like, we need to
You
build
are an angel.
I told you.
or crazy or crazy. But I feel
Um,
like we
yeah,
need
go
to
ahead.
build support systems for these families. The
Yeah.
research shows it
Yeah.
takes a year to come out of homelessness. And so a lot of these families get the fork, but they don't get the knife and the spoon. And so they're always bootstrapping. And so one thing goes wrong, they're back on the streets. I've seen it
Yeah.
over and over and over.
So, if you could share with us, like, what are some of the examples of how people who've never been homeless, right? Because I think people have this idea that could never happen to them or people they know. But can you give us an example of somebody that, like, lived, a life always being housed, and then what happens in their life to take them to this place where they no longer have a house?
Um, gosh, I'm trying to think. I do have a mom that we recently helped, that was married to a very wealthy person, very successful person, and they went through a very ugly divorce. And that person has done her ex-husband has done everything to try to drag her down, and he drug her into
Uh,
homelessness. Um,
Jeez.
yeah. So we have a lot of moms, single moms, and yeah, I feel like the court system is not very helpful to, I feel like the court system sets parents up to fight. The lawyers are the winners, I feel like.
Mhm.
And they're encouraged, they
Jeez.
have an incentive to keep these parents
Mm.
fighting. And I also feel like, we have, well, this is one of the most heartbreaking things for me to see is that we have a lot of 22-year-old, 23-year-old girls that grew up in poverty. This is what their mom did, have 6 kids.
Mm.
And so different fathers, and these dads are not involved. They're not taking responsibility. And so I really feel that a lot of these kids don't have great schools. They don't have community. They don't have the things that a lot of us grow up with the tools. There are a lot, because of the work I've done with kids over 25 years. I can I know very wealthy people that would be homeless if their dad or mom didn't have money. And money
Yeah.
hides a lot of things. And so
Yeah. Yeah.
that's something that a lot of these families don't have, is they don't have money. And I've got a lot of single moms that they cannot get 40 hours because their employer does not want to give them benefits. And so they
Mm.
are hanging
Yep.
on by a shoestring. So I just personally feel that, like, we need to take a step back and be like, what kind of community do we want? And we need
Right.
businesses that want to invest
Right.
in people, and organizations that want to invest in people. And we need to be together. Like, we need to be the community. And I don't like it how it's everyone for themselves. It's not working.
No, it's not, and it's hurting us all. And I think
Yeah.
that's the message that you and, like, what we wanna get across is that, helping each other is the way forward, and it helps all of us. It lifts all of us. Um, so thank you for highlighting that.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people are really like one missed paycheck or one
Yeah.
illness away from
One
homelessness, or
100%.
you can, if you, even if you have a full-time job, um, you go on disability, suddenly you're at 60% of your pay. That might not be enough to cover your expenses. And, you're talking about generational wealth too. That is a huge cushion in our society. Um, yeah, these are big, big institutional problems, structural problems.
They are.
And
They
and
are.
the people that make the least money have the highest car insurance rates, the
Yeah.
highest water costs, the highest electrical costs. That's insane. But I don't know, how do we get people to care about each other? Like,
Well, I
uh,
think yeah, exactly, and I think that's, I think talking to people, and I think that's part of what you do, because I know you besides directly helping people, you hold meetings and conferences, and you try to you wanna talk a little bit about that part of your work?
yeah. So I will say that again, I've been attacked for how I've done this. Um, but I've just done it from my heart, okay? Like, I didn't know what I was doing. And
Yeah.
sometimes I'll be honest, I think that's the best way because I didn't know the barriers. And when I came to a
Mm,
barrier, I was
Interesting.
just like, oh, you're not going to help me? Then I'm just going to find a way around you. And people don't like that. But I
yeah.
think that one of the things that, has made the biggest difference is, and this is what I saw with COVID is that I was part of this. When I started doing those food deliveries, it was my COVID response. And we had Cam Underdown, amazing person, created this system where we had all the volunteers, all the people in need. And then they were scheduled to do these deliveries. And those people, when they went out, they wanted to do more. So my goal is to get people who can have the resources in front of people who don't. Because what I have found is the majority of people are like, I had no idea. What else can I do? And that really
Yeah.
has been the secret sauce of what we've done. I hear churches can't find volunteers, nonprofits are struggling, and we are so blessed because every day I put on our Facebook group, Kids Empowered on the Move, I need someone to buy groceries for a single mom with 5 kids. I need someone to pick up a check from going to Birmingham to Farmington. I need someone to pick up these clothes. And almost every need is met. And so I
Amazing.
think we have to change the way we're helping people. We got to get everyday people involved. And so many
Yeah.
people have thanked me. They said, Kimber, I am so angry at what is happening in our world. And this made me feel better. And
Yep.
volunteering, serving
Yep.
others is one of the best things. When you have purpose in life, you make a difference. That is like, there's nothing better. Money
Yeah.
does not really make people happy. You know,
Yeah.
people like you have all these kids who have been given everything, but you keep buying stuff and they don't find the fulfillment. Having
Right.
purpose is your fulfillment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree 100%. If you're helping other people, it helps you. Like, it absolutely helps you, and especially in this point in time that we're at, where so many people feel hopeless, getting out and helping your neighbors, doing the kind of work that you're doing, Kimber, it makes you feel like, okay, like to your point, like I have a mission, I have a purpose, and I have and the joy you get out of seeing somebody else receive that help. It's almost better than receiving it yourself, in my opinion.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, you are 100% correct.
Yeah, it's that direct connection too that I mean, you can donate to a nonprofit, but if you can specifically deliver groceries or drop off, you're doing something that you see the effect of. and that's building that purpose. It's also building the connection and the relationship and how we help our neighbors. Like, yeah, I mean, that I'm sure that's why people are angry, but really, whatever. There's always going to be detractors, but you're kind of creating, a different way of doing things. But it sounds like there wasn't much of a system in place in the first place if everyone's calling Kimber to
Well,
get
and
them
change
in a
is
hotel.
uncomfortable, right? Change is
Yeah.
uncomfortable. People, want to push back, but I think, I think they're going to be okay.
Yeah.
They don't have much of a choice at this point. The
No, they
moment
don't.
the momentum has built. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's either you get on board or you get off the train right now.
Well, and thank you for that. Um, if you had the ear of people in power, like, what would you ask policymakers to do differently to end homelessness?
So one of the biggest battles that I encountered was we need to give all the funding to these big nonprofits because they're set up to handle it. But it's like almost like putting money into a black hole. um, I think that policymakers need to create an infrastructure that empowers boots on the ground. I see the
Mhm.
people with the passion and the boots on the ground that are making way bigger difference. So I think that um, we need to stop having these like big institutions and big nonprofits, and we need to kind of create like a spider web where someone is sort of managing the main stuff, but it's shooting out to trickles in the throughout the
Mm,
community. And that's what
mm,
I see can be the hugest difference. And I wanted to say a couple other things like Mishta is still sending paperwork. Homeless people lose their benefits all the time because paperwork, not an email, not a phone call, paperwork gets
mm.
mailed to their address and there's nobody there. So they lose their food stamps, they lose their child care, they lose their disability. And it's like, come on, people, why can't you just pick
That's
up
like a
the
basic
phone?
one, isn't it? Like, yeah, that's crazy. Go
It
ahead. Sorry.
is. And so after I like in a couple of months, I'm going to really go at this system problem. It's like you
Mm,
guys, I understand it's going to cost a lot of money, but you need to figure out how to change this because it's not working. And think of all the millions of dollars you're spending in wasted time because now that person has to reapply again. It's
yeah,
insane.
Inefficient at best.
at best.
But that seems like a solvable problem that can be addressed and could really, have a big impact on people's lives.
And what
Huge, a
I
huge
think is
impact. Yeah.
that we need access to people who can solve those problems. So, what I see a lot of is I see a lot of these meetings, and then they're going to like this other person. But let give me access to the person who can change it. Let's have a meeting, okay? Let's not have all these layers. I kind of want to meet with Secretary Benson myself and be like, hey, we need to make it easier for people to get their, driver's license and this and that. Like, I feel like just let's get to the heart of the issue and figure it out. We don't need all these
Mm.
layers and all this politics.
It really sounds like you're on your way to building a matriarchy, maybe already have built it and building on. But I guess in the lens of not only the work that you're doing, but in your life in general, what does the matriarchy mean to you?
Yeah, it is all these women out there fighting for other people. And I really feel like women need the chance to lead. I feel like we put children first. And if we make all our decisions from the standpoint of what is best for children, I think we will do what's best for the whole country, because what is best for children is best for families, that's best for all of us. And so I feel like women have not gotten the chance. And, I'm kind of tired of some of the labels that we get for being the helpers and for being the person speaking out and being the ones that are fighting this cause. And I do believe I love women, and Lisa Kiefer has been one of them. She has
Right back
helped
Of
at you.
me.
course. Me
She has
too.
helped me a lot.
Yeah.
I do love women who are supporting other women and want other women to succeed. And like when we can live our lives open-handedly and not with scarcity and not with fear, but live it with
Yeah.
love and connection and wanting the best for other people, like we're all going to be winners together.
Very well
Yes.
said.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Perfect.
Thank
So,
you all.
all right. Well,
Well, it
thank you
has been
for,
a
yeah, go ahead.
pleasure to get to know you, Kimber. The work you do is really inspiring, and you seem to be a bridge too between people that need help and people that are able to provide it in a more direct way. And that's just it's wonderful. That you are able to fill this very important need.
Well,
Yes.
thank you all.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. I'm always so thankful for everything you do. And one of the things I'm so thankful for is that you do give me opportunities, in bite-sized ways, by the way, to help other people. And it does bring me so much joy. And I always bring my family in with me too. And it brings them joy as well.
I
So,
love it.
so you've helped me as well, and you help so many people, Kimber. And thank you for all the work you do and for joining us today.
Thank you so much
So,
for having me. And I'm glad
all
I'm
right.
part of this group.
Wonderful.
Thank you all.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
She's a very impressive woman.
She
She is
is.
an angel.
She is. That's just the best way for me to describe it. She is an angel, and she does push on people. They feel like it's a push, but she just she's just really passionate in helping people. And I like how she said that, like she didn't really know the system, and it was almost better that she didn't, because she's just like, well, why can't this get done? Like, let's get this done, right? I would be interested to know how many people she's helped in total, and it's a lot.
Well, when you first started telling me about Kimber, and this was going back, over a year, like well before this interview, and Lisa's known Kimber for a long time.
Since
Um,
2018. It's
yeah, that's
a
almost 10
while.
years.
I know.
Um, but I think what really surprised me was the scope of the issue of homelessness in Oakland County, because you just
Mm.
don't think about it. And it is it is really shocking, the needs that are right in front of us that are just under the surface.
Yeah. And so I guess for our audience, for perspective, so Oakland County is a wealthy county, but it's got a very diverse economic footprint across the county. So city by city is all very differently, which is a very interesting subject in and of itself. How that
Yeah.
exists, like how you could be in one city that sort of has this economic base, and like just cross over the line to the next city, and you've got a different economic base, right? So obviously that's a big part of the issue, but I think one of the things that people don't realize is sort of the hidden homelessness.
Yes.
Because there are a lot of people that don't have their own space to live in, so they're couch surfing, or they're like Kimber mentioned, they're paying for hotels. And when we get back to the idea of children and like how helping children is the way to go. I think that like really hits home when you start to think about these children, whether they're in hotels or couch surfing, and then we expect them to go to school
Yeah.
and achieve in school, right? When they might not have their own bed. they might not have depending on the hotel, some hotels have kitchens, but there's just not a lot of space there, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and if you have a mom with 5 kids in a hotel room, how are those kids studying? Like, where are they studying at? Where are they
Yeah.
sleeping at? Like, what's
Well,
the
if you don't have secure sleep
Yeah.
and secure food, it's really hard to learn. And so this
Yes.
idea that it's just education that can pull you out of, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, it's just it's just not true. Like you need bigger supports in place
Yes.
than just
Yes.
a good education.
Yes.
But I will say too, even though we are like Oakland County is very segregated, as you mentioned,
Yeah.
but even within some of the more affluent towns still have poverty issues
Oh, yeah.
and I would say homelessness issues,
Yes.
but it's more invisible. And
It
these
is.
are like, even in my kids' high school, there's all kinds of programs for kids who, are kind of struggling to make ends meet. But in a place like this, um, no one wants to stand out, and no one wants to stand out for that, especially. And so I don't know. I think we've have this idea that, well, oh, well, it's fine where we are. It's just affecting that neighborhood or that impoverished place. But it's not true.
That's
It's
not
not
true.
true. It's just
It's
because
really not true.
yeah,
Yeah.
just because you don't personally experience it doesn't mean it's not happening right
Yeah.
in front of you.
Yeah. And I think another point to, like, really, put a period on is that most of these people are working. This idea that they're
Yeah,
not, I mean, I understand there's still that, there's still some people who aren't and who are sort of like what people think of as homeless, but there's probably the majority of them. I'd love to go get those numbers. And I'm excited that the county is finally starting to, like,
yeah.
take account all of these folks. But most of these people are working,
Yeah,
and
it's the working poor. You still can't make ends meet, and there's corporations out there that are purposely saying, "Well, you can't work 40 hours because then I have to give you health benefits."
yeah,
Right? It's a
yep,
problem.
yep. And another barrier that I fell into, I don't know. I don't know how to say this, but I did fall into this space sort of separately, coming across someone who was unhoused and ended up helping her. And she had 2 children, and the son was 12, so they could not go to a shelter.
Mm,
So that's something to think about for these folks. And he looked like a kid. He looked like a little kid, right? But because of the age and, like, fears of, issues,
sure.
they could not go to a shelter. And she was working full time, but and she even, like, had a nonprofit who was ready to pay her security deposit and first month's rent for her and her family, but it was her credit score. It
Mm,
was her credit score that couldn't get her
interesting.
an apartment. So, I bring this up to just show the layers and layers, and so then you're like, "Well,
Yeah,
why is her well, okay, is her credit score bad? Was she, like, just not good with her money?" Because people say stuff like that. And
sure.
she tried to go back to school. She tried to, like, better herself, and that all
Yeah.
fell apart, and it was those loans that, like, got ahead. And so I feel like as a people, we should not be so hard on each other.
That's exactly right. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
Right.
I would also say that I and I don't have no data to back this up, but I was watching like a video online that stay-at-home moms that get divorced,
Oh, yeah.
here you've been and this is what our current administration really wants women to do is stay at home, raise your babies, which I did that and I'm grateful that I could and that I could make that choice. And our family still sacrificed all those years that I could have been adding to our income. Would but with childcare expense anyway, I'm just saying stay-at-home moms what happens when there's suddenly, if there's a divorce or a death in the family or really anything, an accident, and then you're even in the best case scenario that you have this accident and your spouse is only bringing in 60%. Well, you haven't been working in X number of years. Like these are these are issues that it's really hard, like you don't really think about because you put the building blocks in place as best as you can, and then one falls out and suddenly where are you, and you can be one illness away from.
One illness or one accident.
Yeah.
If you're, if the breadwinner has a job and they get hurt so they can't go back to that
Yeah.
job. Yeah, it's yeah. The system needs an overhaul.
Yeah.
But it's important to have these conversations. I'm so glad we had Kimber on today. It's the conversations and the sharing of information that I think moves us forward. So,
I agree. I
um,
really like what she said too, that she doesn't complain if she's not willing to do something about it. Because, Lisa, you and I were both the people in school who did the group project.
still am.
Still are. And I feel like just about all of our listeners, you guys are the ones doing the group
You're
project
doing the
too.
group project. We need everybody on board for these projects. So
I know.
let's
I
get it
know.
going. So
Yeah, so
all
I
right.
appreciate that she is, willing to really get in. I mean, she's been getting in there since, you know,
Yeah.
she
Well,
sees a
she has.
problem,
I
she
mean,
does her
like, there's
best to
more to
figure it
her
out.
life story. She's been doing advocacy and, uplifting people for probably I guess since college, but it feels like, I don't know. My guess is it's been her whole life if we like peek into the whole thing. It's just who she is. It's just who she is. I'm just so happy that she does what she does and that she highlights. And I'm so happy that she's got some help from the county now. So that's great. And, but if you are looking to volunteer, if you're not in Oakland County, I'm sure there's other organizations like this out there near you. Look around. And if you are in Oakland County or anywhere nearby, look up Kids Empowered on the Move on Facebook. There is a public group there where people are just helping their community members, and you can jump in and you will be welcomed.
Yeah, we'll get all the information on our website and our show
Yeah.
notes. And I want to thank you too, Lisa, for bringing not only Kimber to us in the audience, but for all the work that you've been doing, to help.
I just help where I can. Like I said, she sends me bite-sized pieces.
I know
and
you do, girl.
But I will say this, it is so rewarding when you deliver
Yeah.
something to a house, especially a house that has children, and they're so happy to receive it. Oh my gosh. Like, it's just like the best feeling. So,
We appreciate everyone's time and thank you for being with us. We know that you guys are always the one doing the group projects and, not to ask more of you, but spread the word.
spread the word.
And there's always a place for you to help and be a part of this wonderful community. So don't forget to like, and if you like the show, give us a little 5-star review. That'd be amazing. And share the episode with your friends. They'll like it.
Yes.
You
Yes.
like it. They'll like it.
Yes. Thank you so much. So, welcome to the Matriarchy.
Welcome to our community.